Jessica Cutler here with Envent, a corporate event planning company based out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And we are in week 4 of our 8-week informational series. Woo, we are like halfway there. So just as a quick recap, week 1, we uncovered the secret to becoming an and enhancements, which are like those little things that you can add to the programs that leave a lasting impression. And that's all the way from the planning processes to the on-site internal team, all the way to like the for real party bonuses. So we are not going to waste any time. We're going to jump right into this week, which is our next service. And we are going to talk about where we bring together all the event enhancements and we deep dive into event design and themed concepts. Right? This is the fun, pretty stuff. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance because this live is going to be rather long because while this is the fun, pretty stuff that everybody loves and they enjoy attending and they want to know everything about, guess what? This is the hardest, most complex thing that I do. It was certainly the hardest service that I learned when I started, and it has evolved from the first event I have ever designed to the events that I design now. I mean, I think I would be embarrassed to even show you some of those events. So it has been quite a process, quite a learning process, and I have grown a lot just in it myself. So I'm excited to share this with you today. I'm going to try to not hold anything back. I am going to lay it all out there for you. So, and I'm going to tell you right now how I'm going to try to approach it. And because it is a long live, if you don't have the next little bit of time to spend with us right now, if you want to go back and maybe you only care about certain sections of it, I'm going to try to go back into the description and put the times that I'm kind of hitting all these little parts of it. And you can go back and watch it if that's what you like. So hopefully it will be helpful. So basically it's like, this is what we're going to go through. Here's my outline. Where do the conversations begin? What are some of the exploratory questions that I ask? Why is it important to understand budget range? And then kind of what is like a proposal timeline and expectations? Once that initial conversation ends, then where does the process start? Right? How do we, research it? How do we get into the proposal timeline? Not proposal timeline. I'm sorry, I read it wrong. Create the inspiration boards and such as that. Then once we have our direction, how do we invent it? How do we create the diagrams, choose the vendors, convey the vision, adjust the design with the budget in mind, and work through the revisions with the client? And then once it's contracted, how do we execute it like a professional? So kind of that prepping and packing of the event, coordinating and communication with the hotel and the vendors. And ultimately, I'm just going to lay out some tips and tricks that I have found to be successful on site. So that's what I'm covering today. I do know it's a lot. Bear with me. I'm going to try to go through it, but enjoy because this really is the fun stuff and I'm excited to share it. So let's get going. Where does the conversation begin? Well, it typically begins in one of two ways. Number one, the client calls you and they say like, I want a luau. And I would tell you, wait, let me start here. We are doing some new stuff. I'm going to try to because it's so long, I'm going to try to overlay some visual stuff. But we're kind of working through some interesting things. So you have to bear with me on this one. I've got some things, my hands are going in different directions and we all know that I need my hands to speak. So, okay, hang with me. All right, for real, we're going this time. Okay, exploratory questions. So where does the conversation typically begin? Well, it begins in one of two ways. So the client calls and they go, I've got this luau. It's going to be at this venue on this date at this time. I've got this much money. And these are all the pieces that I want included. And then I wake up and I realize that the conversation sounded a little bit more like this. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I work with this group. We've been talking about doing something a little different, fun, extra this year, but we have no idea what we want it to be. We're going to be at this venue. Our conference dates are, this day to this day. And we're, thinking we want an evening event, not really sure what time it's going to start. And I know you're going to ask me what the budget is, but I have no idea. So either way, can you help? Well, from week 1, what is the answer? Yeah, of course we can. Of course we can help. But literally, they've not really given me anything. What they have given me is a problem that I need to solve. So if you can't tell from all of my lives, I'm like such a math girl. So, what they've given me is this problem that we need to solve. We've got to set up an equation and we got to solve for X. So we've got to figure out all the variables that we do know and then solve for what we don't know. So this is how we get here. So I always start with reestablishing the things that they've already said they know. If it's the location, the venue, the date, and I always like to establish a timeline up front. Not necessarily that I need to know that it starts at 7 o'clock or it starts at 6 o'clock or it starts at 8 o'clock. I don't need to know like the actual time. We can adjust that later. What I'm looking for is the length of time, because so many vendors are going to price based on the amount of hours. So in this initial conversation, it's wise to go ahead and establish what you're going to start with. It can change. If we start and we price it on 3 hours, they decide they want it to be a 4-hour event, we know it's going to be a little more expensive. If we start at 3 hours, it's going to go down to 2 hours. We know it'll be a little less, but we just need to agree on a starting timeline. Next, I'm going to try to understand the generalized demographics of the group. Now, is that mostly men, mostly women? Are there children? International, like whatever it is, I just need to kind of understand like what kind of people are going to be attending the event. Now, one of the favorite things that I love to do is, walk in to an event and, with my husband now and say, hey, babe, what do you notice? And I will say, after being with me for 8 years, he notices way, way more things than he did when he first started. But kind of taking it back to last week, unless it was something major, like he wasn't going to notice it. So if we walked into a ballroom that he's been in, the entire conference and everything's blue, he's going to notice that. But if he walks in and it's been in a theater set all day and now it's set for a dinner and we've got banquet rounds and there's, centerpieces and it's a floral centerpiece, he's probably not going to notice that was anything more than what the standard centerpiece is on the table. So, and I will say this, a little aside, whenever I am trying to design and plan for an event, I am not trying to make everyone happy. I am simply shooting for the majority. So you cannot get down if one person, doesn't love ping pong. That's okay. Not everyone loves ping pong. So, shoot for the majority. Everyone is different. That's what makes this all so beautiful. So just shoot for the majority. Now, understanding who is attending the event, it can really give you clues as to what's going to be noticed. So what's going to lend to that wow factor? Because anything can be a wow factor. I've had many events where the centerpiece was the wow factor. The reality of those wow factors is that it falls in the eye of the beholder. So along those same lines, when I'm talking with the planner, especially if they've been working for a group for multiple years and they know their client way better than I know their client, I love to ask them, where do you see value? Now, I'm going to harp on this through the rest of it, so you might as well just get used to hearing it. Where do you see value? I've worked with all kinds of people at this point, and I've had people say, like, do not waste my time with linens. Nobody cares about the linens. I want this gorgeous entrance and perimeter props, and whatever. So if that's the case, I'm not going to waste my time trying to pitch them linens. I'm going to spend my time trying to come up with creative, fun, different designs for their entrance or for perimeter props. They'll say, like, I don't want any decor. I just want interactive elements. I'm going to work basically just with what they're telling me they see value in. On the other hand, I have had planners call me that all they wanted to do was upgrade the linen. So I have worked with them all. It's just where they see value. And no one's wrong. I did not spend 40 minutes last week talking about event enhancements to tell you this week that one's more important than the other. Everyone has their own personal opinion. And establishing that up front and establishing like which enhancements they see value in, it's a huge key to managing the budget and, developing the larger design within the budget. So now another important question that I like to ask, which is, I like these big open-ended questions, right? This one is like, what's the goal or the objective of your function? Like, is there a program or awards that everyone's going to want to sit down for? Is this just a networking function to get people in the room and like there might be some food in there, but it's not the focus? Like you want them to go get dinner later. This question really helps me to understand how to build the space. So buffet dinners with, big plates that people are going to need a knife and a fork to be able to use, or to eat, programs, and such. I'm going to put down seats for every person if the space allows. Knowing, and I will say this because I'm saying it to you, knowing that if you give every person a seat, every person will sit down. Okay. Now, reception style functions, they can have live entertainment options, small plates, and kind of like food station areas. They typically inspire more of a flow style seating. So intentionally, I'm going to seat less, typically between 50 to 75% of the expected attendance, depending on the length of the function. And pulling back into that earlier question, the generalized demographic age, I'm probably going to put out more seats for a group that's predominantly older guests, versus if it's a young crowd at an hour function. Like, if that's the case, I may not put out any seats because the idea is for them to move and to talk and to gather. And so I may not put out any seats for that kind of function. A lot of times instead of seeing like the tables with the chairs around it, you'll see what they call high boys or cocktail tables. And, those are nice because they really encourage people to stand, group around them, but not get too comfortable. So they'll move a little freer around the space, but it still gives them a place to put their plate down. So like, that's when I say small plates, dinner plates are like, I think they're like 7 to 9 inches, somewhere like that. And then you've got these little like baby plates, and high boys are great for that because they can sit down, they can take a few bites, whatever fits on that plate, and then they move on. Now let's just say if you have a reception style function, but you need to put, I'm sorry, I know we're working on it here. You need to put some, seats down, but you still want it to be kind of comfy and cozy. Soft seating is certainly the way to go because it lends to that sort of atmosphere and it just sort of changes the feel of the space, but it still allows for additional seating. So soft seating is like a nice way to sort of change that up. Okay, so let's go through it. We've reestablished the event specs. We have understood now the people that are attending the event. We're understanding which event enhancements the event planner or the decision maker sees value in. And now we've wrapped our heads around what they're trying to accomplish with the function. Okay, next. We need a direction or a theme. And it's always wonderful when they come and they say, this is our theme. Or they have a couple ideas and we just kind of need to like talk about it, sort through it and fine tune it. But if they're coming to you with an empty sheet, it's definitely a little more difficult simply because the possibilities are endless. My advice, if this is the case, is just keep them talking. The more you can get the client to talk about the conversations that they've had with the planning team or find out their likes, their dislikes, or their favorite color, programs they've had in the past that went really well, programs in the past that they didn't go so well. Understanding any of that can help you find a solid starting point for direction or theme. And now I know when I say theme, you're probably like, oh, you mean Havana Nights, Masquerade, 80s, Margaritaville, Luau. Like you think a theme has to be like we'll call them like a costume party theme. But that's not actually what I think of when I say theme. A theme is really just a reoccurring idea. So to me, a theme could just be a color. We could have a blue event. Or, a theme could be like a texture. Like they may really love chevron. So whatever designs we come up with, we incorporate chevron into it. Or a really nice theme is just kind of incorporating their brand. Sometimes company branding is like the coolest thing. And if someone doesn't really know what they want and they don't really care per se, for me, that's always kind of an easy fallback because I know that they're going to like it and it's going to be relevant to everybody in the room because that's usually the reason why they're there. I've got a couple pictures. I'm going to try. Bear with me. So I have this one group, it really wasn't a large of a budget, but it was their 70th anniversary. And they had no idea what they wanted. They just knew they wanted it to be different than it was every other year. And they were like, we don't care, just surprise us, make it pretty. So when I was like, well, they're celebrating an anniversary. So they're celebrating who they are as a company. I personally love the color Kelly green, which is their company color. And so let's like pop one of these pictures up here. Okay, so what we did with this is we did green uplights all the way around the room, right? It's like one fine day in the Emerald City. If you are Broadway at all and you know Wicked, that's where it comes from. So we did green uplights all the way around the room. We draped everything in black, the chairs, the tables, and then we came up with 3 different centerpieces, which if you'll notice, each one of them has the branding on it. There's one, I'm sorry, here's the other one. I'm like, it's like a, look, Envent. And then the other one here. So if you notice, each one of them has like a little jeweled bug in it, which was, whenever I was designing, like I just fell in love with it. It took me forever to find something that I could put in that would sort of tie all these little pieces together. And I'll tell you my secret, I didn't spend that much money on it. I actually went in and because I thought of this after the fact, like I think I had to flip this pretty quick. So I actually thought of this after the fact and wanted so bad to incorporate it. So I actually found black spider rings that came with these jewels on their butt, like you saw in those pictures. And so I cut off the ring itself. And then of course they were spiders and I didn't want to be spiders because that seemed a lot grosser than just like a bug. So then I went in and I cut off 2 of their legs. And then that's how I was able to incorporate them into the design. So brand identity is a really, really fun theme as well if you don't want to go any other direction. And I will say, while I'm a yes girl, I am not a mind reader. So, before you get off the phone, you've got to agree on something or narrow it down to some sort of direction or a couple options. Because then from there, you can create some inspiration boards and kind of continue that conversation and help fine tune where you're going. So now, last but certainly not least, that question that everybody hates. Do you have a budget range? Now, I have changed that question over the years because to ask for a budget, like what is your budget? I feel like it's restricting for myself and even for the client. So, so many times like the budget really hasn't been established. It might be because they don't know what something like this might cost, or it might be because they have a large event budget and they have different pieces that they know they want included. But like one of my clients loves to say, she is more than willing to rob Peter to pay Paul if it's something that she likes. So, I completely understand whenever people say, or when clients say that they don't really have a budget, because they're still developing it. For me, what I'm more so asking for when I'm asking for a budget range is a way to narrow down the options that I can present. So I'm going to break it down like this. We are going to talk about one event enhancement. Now, when we're doing larger designs and themed concepts and things like that, we're probably bringing in 4 to 10 different event enhancements, right? Okay. We're going to talk about one so you can understand what I mean when I'm trying to narrow down options. We are going to do it with linens. Okay, let me go through here. So this is like, here's a book, here's swatches, here's another book that sort of like breaks down all kinds of more options. I'm going to pull this one out because this one's going to be the one that's going to help me the most, all right? So this is one company. And now here in my office, I have 4 companies, and I have more in the closet, but these are the 4 that I love the most. I feel like they offer a huge array of options. So what this one offers, the other one doesn't, or maybe this one offers something this one doesn't. Maybe these are a little more high end. Maybe these are not as high end. Like I have so many options. Okay, but here's how I'm going to break it down. Standard polyester linens are generally cheaper than upgraded material linens. So you're gonna have to bear with me here. I gotta have multiple hands. So polyester, this is a material. So polyester linen is gonna be typically more expensive than an upgraded material linen. Now you think there's like maybe one or two. I'm just gonna read the tabs to you. Crinkle taffeta, shantung, pin tuck, eyelash pin tuck, crushed romance, dingaline, l'amour, satin, organza, petals. Yeah. I mean, this is one book, right? That's one book. You saw me move this book. So polyester is typically cheaper than your upgraded material linens. And then those upgraded material linens are typically cheaper. These are your upgraded materials, are typically cheaper than, say, like your pattern linens, right? So, and then of course there's all kinds of options there. Now, let's just say we've chosen the material that we want. Well, now we need to decide what color we want. Well, guess what? Just in the polyester family alone, I'm gonna hold this up. I lost my little picture here, hold on. So just in the like polyester family alone, I've got 6 that are true, I would consider blues, although even on the second page, there's like marina, so it's like blue too. But then it also has like these jade colors. So once you decide your color, then now you've got options of the color. Okay, so we've chosen the material, we've chosen the color, and then the reality is you've got floor-lit linens, which are more expensive than overlays. And overlays have about 3 to 4 different sizes and 2 different shapes, but they also require an underlinen. And then those are generally typically more expensive than a runner. See where I'm going here? That's just one company. So options have options, and then those options have additional options. So when I'm talking about a budget range, I'm just trying to narrow down the options. So if someone comes to me and says they don't have a budget, a lot of times I'll just kind of like make it funny. I might be like, all right, cool. If you don't have a budget, then all right, then I'm just going to send you something for 50,000. You're going to be cool with that? Some people are like, you are so funny. And then from there, they kind of understand like, oh, well, no, we're really kind of hoping like with this part of it, maybe it's like, 5,000. And if it's 5,000, that's fine. I just know that I'm starting in the polyester family and I might be able to throw in a full length linen here and there. But the reality is I'm probably just kind of looking on, runners on a standard hotel linen. Now, I toss out 50,000 and they're like, oh, heck yeah, girl, you pull it on 50, then that'd be awesome. When I get that response, then I'm pulling out like the big gun books and I'm pulling out the really awesome linens, and I'm going to figure out how to transform all those tables into something else. So budget range, not necessarily like has anything to do with money. It's more so about narrowing those options. Now, over the years, I've learned how to present my proposals in a way that allow for some options and upgrades, but that also respect that budget range. So that allows the planner to have more control over the design and to pick and choose, kind of where they see the value and where they want to put the money. Don't get me wrong. I have had plenty of clients also come to me and say, I've got this much money and I'm not going a penny over, but I need a solid design in this amount. And I can totally do that as well. Typically when that's the case, I'm more so a little more restricted in the options that I can put out to them, especially if it's a small budget. So if it's a small budget and it's a very tight small budget, then, my advice on that is just the really key is really only incorporating the items that they see value in. Don't fluff it. Focus on where they see the value because that's where they'll get their wow. Now, those were just some like basic questions. Has there been any? I'm trying to like be better about checking in on things and see. Oh, hey, Deborah, I know you said you had PT, so I'm so glad you're in here. Yay. Oh, and Braden's snoozing. That's all right. And Allison. Yes, Bethany loves the petal linens. All right, well, I don't see any questions per se, but if you have any questions while I'm rolling through this, or you just need me to slow down on it, drop them in here. I'm going to try to check in and not just like hit it at the end. All right, so we've talked about the exploratory questions. We've talked about understanding the, the budget range, why it's important in that initial conversation. And next, we're going to talk about just like this expectations in the proposal timeline. So like I said, there's not really like 20 questions that I ask that's standard for every single conversation that I'm having with the client. More so, I try to let the conversation sort of lead me into the client's brain so that when they close their eyes, what do they see? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, the most important thing that I'm trying to do before I get off this initial conversation is really understand their expectation, what they want to see and how quickly they'd like to see it. Now let's talk about how quickly they'd like to see it. In a standard, I will say for me, this is totally me. I can't speak for any other company. In a standard event season, I typically request about 2 weeks as a minimum turnaround time. And that's just like standard proposals, minimum. That, of course, it depends on the current workload in and out of the office. So, I will say during a standard event season, I've probably got 4 or 5 proposals on top of each other most all times. And then usually like 2 or 3 events happening kind of back to back. That's what I kind of consider standard. But there are also those seasons where I've got 10 events on top of each other and 10 proposals stacked up on top of each other. And if someone comes in and they need, they want a proposal, I'm probably going to ask for a little more time. So standard's 2 weeks, but just sort of depends on what's happening in the world. I will say the most important thing to kind of know is that when we are developing an entire event, like it's one thing when it's event enhancements and here or there, a touch of that. But whenever we're coming up with this complete event concept, it takes time. I will tell you, nothing is more frustrating for me, exciting and frustrating, than for someone to call me and have this amazing vision, great budget. Like I am so excited. It's like this large program. I want to make magic happen. And then saying them going like, oh, and just so you know, so sorry to be coming to you last minute, but I've got a meeting with the event committee tomorrow at noon. Can you have something to me by then? And it's like 6 o'clock the day before. It's a day in the life. And I will say I certainly try to do what I can. I've changed a lot. My level of yes has certainly evolved over time to recognize that I too am human and cannot do it all. I would say in my first year, I probably would have said yes, and I probably would have stayed up all night long. Now I have gotten wiser in my older age. And, I typically will kind of say something like, it's like a compromise. And I'll kind of suggest, an inspiration board with no pricing that like but they only gave me 3 days to get this bid to them. And it just so happened to fall over the same days as, I know you've seen pictures of it, our Havana and our Alice in Wonderland themed event. Those events actually took place back to back. And just to give you an idea, like set up on site for those events is like we get on site at like 7 a.m. and then the event ends at 11 o'clock at night. So then we tear down until probably about 2 a.m. And then like we're back at 7 a.m. Right. So that's just the on-site event. Well, this lead was really awesome. I really wanted it. I had 3 days to get it to him. So I actually chose to only sleep 3 hours in a 72-hour period. And I will say, I'll give myself credit that y'all seen the pictures. The event was beautiful. I was super proud of it. The proposal, I actually pulled it out because I don't have the heart to even throw it away. But like the proposal was like this casino theme was one night. They had transportation, and then they did this like colored paint splattered look here. And then these tables, they were going to color on site, like on this event. And then it was going to transfer. These are all the like add-on options. And it was going to transfer into this night. So the tables that they colored on the first night were going to be like tables for them the second night. And then we did like paint splattered the first night. And then the second night was going to be like this like watercolor stained glass explosion of color. It was beautiful. And I was so excited. And this was like a 10-page proposal all put together. So I did it. I got it out, 3 hours of sleep, 72 hours, did that, did the other proposal to only find out like less than like it may have even been in the same day. Like, I don't even think they waited through the weekend. The client wrote back and was like, oh, so sorry. We didn't get to you sooner. We just decided to work with a company that we've been working with for 5 years. Oh, that's another hashtag day in the life. I will say, blessed. If you're a client, you know I have killed myself to get you something, like just break it to me gently. Like give me like, I don't know, give me like a week to sort of like recoup. Like I think it took me like 2 weeks just to come out of that. But whatever. Over the years, I've definitely changed kind of my approach to that to be helpful and to get and supportive to the client to get them what they can get going to start the conversations on their side, but yet give me a little bit of grace to not have to die on the backside. So key to a successful company: manage, meet, and exceed expectations. So typically if I'm asking for 2 weeks, I'm trying real hard to get it to them in a week. I just never want to promise a week and then need 2 to get it to them. So manage, meet, exceed expectations. And just if it's a large event, it's going to take a little extra time to develop, create, discuss, operate, manage. Any group that works with events with this service year over year, we've actually gotten to the point with most of them that they will pretty much like tell me what the theme is going to be for next year before we've even started setting up for it this year. And if they don't know what it is, then I'll get an email like a month or 2 later once they've decided it. And it might just be a picture of their conference logo, or it might just be the word. Like I've got a group and I love her. She might even be watching, Beth. Their event is in October. But usually no later than January, I have got either the conference logo or I've got the theme. So they recognize, especially if we've been working together year over year, they recognize that the more time they give me, the more creative I can be. And that's always fun because those lead for the coolest events on my side. Okay, so conversation's over. We have just now gotten through the initial inquiry. So where do we even start? I'm going to say this. For me, I like to start the old-fashioned way. Whenever I get a theme or request or something like that, I like to toss it out to Will. He's actually a really good sounding board. I don't want to see anything yet. I just kind of want to think about it, right? That's the old-fashioned way. Just think about it. So I like to toss it out to Will. I'll toss it out to my family. I'll toss it out to Brooke. And my question is like, I'll say the word and then I'll be like, what does that make you think of? Like I give them no context. I just want to hear what it makes them think of. And it might be design. It might be the message that's being sent with the word. Like I get all kinds of answers and I love that. Now, if it's a theme that needs a little more information, I'll go back and I'll research it. I will rewatch the video. I will research, nuances of eras, let's see if I can say it, or a topic, or, a lot of times I'll just simply type in the word on Google and just let it spill out all the different angles that can be associated with that word, because there's a part of me that loves to make sure people get it. And then there's also that part of me that whenever I design, I like for there to be that little like extra element on top where people are like, ooh, yeah, see what she was doing there. That's cool. So I'll kind of, play in the research side of it. Next, I'll admit it, I am a Pinterest girl. I love Pinterest, like a world that you can just go together and like all these pictures, like just in this one space, like it's like heaven for me. So whenever I'm starting to build, I will go into Pinterest and I'll start a board or 10 and I'll start pulling pictures. Once I kind of feel like I've built those boards up, then I'll go to the boards and I'll start looking at the individual pictures and start pulling pieces that I enjoy. And then I'll typically take those pieces and and I will like start building my own design from them. So this is where I get my inspiration. You can get your inspiration from anywhere, but this is kind of where this is sort of the progression mine takes. Now, I will say, bless all the poor vendors who have gotten hand-drawn diagrams of their items so they can understand what I'm trying to piece together to get a price on. Or even the clients, this is for you, Beth, even the clients that I want them to be as excited as I am for the items that I am trying to build for them. So I will, try to like draw a picture for them. And, I like to think that them seeing my pictures are like seeing my pictures and then like still letting me build them is like a show of good faith and like trust in our working relationship that I know what I'm doing. So like, let me see if I can play with it for a minute. So there's one hand-drawn diagram, and then I have a picture of what it actually came out to be. See, so like, I wasn't so far off. I mean, granted, I did redraw that picture for her because the original one was not pretty. Here's another example. I love me. I love me. They love them too. All right. So that was what I said it was going to look like. And then take a quick look. Bam. That's what it ended up looking like. Right. Okay. I'm not far off. I mean, algebra is more my gig, but I didn't fail in geometry either. I can draw a 3D cube. But I will say one thing that I've really prided like Envents on as a company is creating custom proposals for every event. Even if I have a group that sees an event that we've done and they're like, I want that event, I try my best to put even the smallest twist on it that makes it distinctly theirs. Like I have never done the same event twice. I've reused some decor here or there or the general idea when the request is made, but I just love inventing something new, and I empower my team to think the exact same way. Like I never want anyone to walk into one of my events and be like, oh, see that centerpiece? Yeah, this is definitely one of Jessica's events. Like I don't want them to be like, yeah, this is, Envent's event because we've seen that centerpiece 1,000 times. Like I want them to walk in and be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is so innovative. This must be an Envent's event. So how do we build, right? Okay, so now we've got our direction. Now we're rocking and rolling. How do we build this thing? All right, well, hang tight. Oh, Allison says, okay, she needs a lesson on how to make boards. Are you willing? Of course. Oh my gosh, I'm like the best at boards. So definitely. So let's just get together and I will teach you how to do some inspiration boards. We actually build ours in Word, which I know seems really silly, but we build ours in Word and then we move it over into Acrobat and PDF it. So, and I have an example of one, so I'll be able to kind of show you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you kind of through this system of how we maybe I've even already sent an inspiration board. So let me pull up, this is the around the world. This is the around the world inspiration board. So let me pull it here. It is, yep. Okay. So let's just kind of scroll through. I'm sorry. I'm like this weird thing. I'm like, haha, peekaboo. Okay. Here's another one. Another page. So, an inspiration board is simply a collection of colors, pictures, words, whatever, to help the client like understand like what I'm thinking, when I'm thinking to design the event. And it's not really necessarily what the end product's going to be. Like I said, it is just to inspire thought and conversation. So I got this inspiration board where it's just sort of this, like, I'm throwing you out my ideas. Now I'm going to diagram. Now I work on Social Tables, which is a diagramming software that majority of the hotels are using, like, especially around here. It's fabulous. We can share it back and forth. We can send it to our clients. We can view our sets in 3D. It has this database of like all these floor plans of venues like internationally. So that's cool when I'm going somewhere that I've never been before. Their floor space is probably already in Social Tables. And then past that, if they don't have their stuff in there, I can literally just request a blank diagram from them, drop it into Social Tables, scale it, and then I can still design everything to scale, which is also very key. It does not help to diagram if you are not diagramming to scale. And I'll say for someone starting their own event planning company, this was one of the first software systems that I purchased before, even before a CRM system. And then CRM stands for a customer. Try again, Jessica, hold on, I wrote this down. It's a CRM database, a customer relationship management system. So where you kind of keep, your all the information about your events, your programs, your clients, the financials, all that fun jazz. So I got a diagramming system first. And I will say I will be more than happy to explain the elements of a diagram if you are interested independently. But there are a lot of elements, so we're not going to go through them today for the purpose of this series. I just want you to know that, whenever I'm working with a diagram, I'm not just putting out the tables and the chairs. I am trying to put in everything, and I am going to I'm seeing Deborah, you'd like a board lesson too. Well, maybe we'll work that into our next series, which might be fun. So I'm sorry, I got to keep myself on track here. Yeah. Okay. Diagram. That's what I was talking about. So with the diagram, let me pull it up so you guys can see while I'm talking. This is the diagram from the Around the World event. It probably looks like a bunch of shapes and colors to you, which it does to me too. But for the respective vendors who know what products they're bringing, they understand it. They know exactly what pieces they're moving there. So this is where I start. Now, from here, I will literally start dropping in the items in the space and start piecing the puzzle together. As I am building that diagram, I'm also building the proposal. And I used to use more words in my proposals. And then I realized that no one, including myself, was actually reading any of those words. So what I have been doing, I've gotten wise. And I more so group items and list them out with bullet points. I feel like people will read bullet points a lot better. And then I try to use pictures, like actual pictures of the product I'm doing, or I'll try to build or I'll hand draw those things to explain the vision. So you saw the inspiration board. Now this was the proposal. Now bear with me because it was 10 pages. So I'm going to roll through them really fast. All right, page 1, this was our entrance. Page 2, this was when they walked in the room, what I was trying to create. Page 3, this was our Spain area. Page 4 was our Italy area. I'm not going to keep counting because I'm going to lose count and I'm going to look like an idiot. This was China. Here was Germany. This was France. And you can see it, I'm pulling out exact chairs that I'm using. That cafe picture, that is an actual prop. That entrance space was the entrance that I used. I'm using real things here. Here is Egypt and all the little pieces that go along with Egypt. And then this page was kind of cool because not only did I do the perimeter stations and the build of the event itself, I actually ended up doing food stations as well. And then the very last page, I actually worked with the client to get her team to do different characters in each place. So that was cool as well. So inspiration, diagram, then to the proposal. So while I'm in this development stage, I'm reaching out to the vendors, I'm figuring out how many I need of what, which ones I feel like are going to be the best fit for the program and the vision and the budget. So you can imagine there's 1,000 things kind of happening all at one time. And this is just one proposal. Right? What'd I tell you? I'm probably working on 4 to 5 to 10 all at the same time. So you can imagine my brain is a scary place. But I will tell you, in this part, this is where it helps to be a professional, because for someone who is not doing this for a living, you are going to spend countless hours researching the vendors, researching reviews on the vendors to make sure they're a good company, making sure they've got the product that you want, the inventory of the product that you want. Then you're trying to get, the lingo to get the right proposal and the pricing. And then is their pricing inclusive? Are there any additional fees? So that's just one vendor. So that's where it's nice, because I will tell you at this point now, I know that you're going to spend countless hours simply because I have spent countless hours doing just that. And I'll say now, I think I've pretty much got the majority of my top vendors. I think I've got their whole inventory memorized at this point. So when I'm building the inspiration boards now it might not just be random pictures. It might literally be the pieces that I know I want to use from the different vendors. So I'm building that as I'm building that inspiration board. You know, and the idea is that you're trying to kind of put out the best vision up front so that there's not so many revisions on the backside. So, and I'll say for budget's sake, I do try to utilize minimal vendors that are supplying the same type of product. So like, you know, a linen vendor or a prop vendor or a rental vendor, like the vendor that supplies the item. But I will say for larger events that can be difficult, especially with the around the world when we were trying to get so many different looks into one space. And, you know, whenever you're working with those larger programs, you're probably working with multiple linen companies, multiple, you know, prop or rental companies, gaming vendors, an array of entertainers. So, you know, you try to avoid it. That will help keep the cost down. But the reality is sometimes to get the right look, you just got to bite the bullet and get it in there. And the reason why let me say the reason why it helps is because they have their own delivery and their own labor costs that's involved. And if you're working with one company, then you're only getting charged that one time. If you're working with multiple companies, then obviously you're going to get charged that for every company you use. So in this phase, I am keeping in mind that, you know, all the answers to the questions that they have said above, you know, and I'm keeping in mind, like if they didn't see value in decor, which around the world, clearly they see value in decor, but if they don't see value in decor, then I'm going to try to, you know, focus on, you know, lighting, cool lighting or interactive elements. And I'm going to try to keep the decor. It's going to be there, but it's going to be super minimal. So that's what I mean when I say, you know, understanding where they see value is where I can really direct the design and the vision. So I'll say it again. Understanding the budget range and the value given to certain elements will help you propose something solid from the beginning and will reduce the amount of revisions at the end. Now, adjusting the design with the budget in mind, the next thing that I'll say, and it's totally my opinion, totally mine, not saying for anyone else, I'm a firm believer that it's a lot easier to scale down an event than it is to build it up. Like, don't get me wrong, you know, I can certainly build it up if need be, but for me, it's a lot easier to start with this full, complete vision and then see where the client wants to compromise. You know, a lot of times they just haven't even thought of certain things. Like they go, oh, I just want linens and centerpieces. They don't even know that they could have really awesome props. So if I don't tell them, they won't know. So I love to kind of build that full, complete vision up front. And then, you know, I will say this. If you're going from 13,000 to 3,000, that is not the same event. That is two totally different events. You know, and if there is, you know, understanding, if you're going from 13,000 to 10,000, you know, this is where it's super important to hear back from the client and understand their value. So if there's a simple add-on that can just be removed, then obviously it's just an easy way to cut. But what I like to do once they've seen the full design is, you know, I like for them to talk me through it. What do they like? What do they not like? Or, you know, if they're like, oh my gosh, Jessica, I don't know. I love everything, but I've got to cut $3,000. Then that's okay too. That definitely helps me because just remember, I've just narrowed down 100,000 options. And, you know, instead of just telling me like, just cut this, Jessica, like, I just don't want the entrance. The reality is, you know, if I can understand what their must keep items are or where they're willing to scale and compromise on, then I can typically tweak the design to get into the budget range they're more comfortable with and still maintain the integrity of the vision. So now you've seen all the build up. Let's roll through these. I'm going to hide behind this picture. Ta-da! All right. So like all the stages that it's been, from the inspiration board to the diagram to the proposal to what it actually looked like. And I should just probably go back and like reshare the video in case you missed it back in December, because the video is way, way super cool. Corey put it together, and it's just like, you can't even take it all in, because it was just, it had so many different nuances. And I will say, if you want an easy event to start on for your first like themed event, around the world is not that theme, because just know that every single place that you choose to have in there as a place, a destination, it is like its own little event inside the larger event. So you really want to test your designing skills, do around the world, and pick random companies, countries. All right, so there you have it. That's how an event is built. Clear as mud, right? Okay, I know this has been a long one. I swear I'll try to keep the other shorter. I'm like sweating in here. I'm gonna have to like turn on the like air next time I do it. Whew, try to do my hair. It's gonna be flat. Said no one's gonna even recognize me with my hair down, because I always wear my hair up. But okay, before I get off here, I'm gonna try to go through quickly, like once the event is designed, the contract is signed, you're ready to go into operation, you want to be successful. So here are my tips and tricks for being successful once you've gotten through the designing process. Okay, once you've gone to contract, always send the final orders and diagram layout to the hotel and the venue so they can know what to expect from you, especially if it's something you know, and I will even venture to say, like, you need to confirm the setup and the teardown times. Sorry, I know we're blacking in and out. It's kind of funny. I can see it over here, and like Corey's so frustrated, but I'm really fine. So if you just keep listening, I'm gonna keep talking. So you know, you need to confirm the setup and the teardown times with your venue. But really more so, it's almost more important to do that before you actually even start reaching out to vendors in the beginning, because you know the vendors need to know how many people to be staffed to be able to be set up or torn down in the time that the hotel has allotted. Like, I don't know if you remember in our Adventure series where we were in Chicago and we were trying to change like a 2,000 person theater set to like a 1,200 dinner set in 2 hours. We did it. And we did it in an hour and a half. But you had like me, on the wheel. And then we had like a team of 15 people in addition to like the hotel staff, in addition to like the labor union. So like, it can be done, but it is going to cost more money in additional labor. So, you know, really upfront, know if you've got 8 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours, know that up front. So that way you're able to cost that effectively from the beginning, and it's not something that has to change later on once you figure out what it is. So in addition to your venue contact your vendors immediately. Do not wait. They are getting leads from all other people. It is super important that you get yours in there and you get contracted. For us, we use a logistics timeline where we list out the day that we reached out to the vendor, the day that they responded, the day we went to contract, if we've paid the deposit, when the final remainder is left. Like, we write all that stuff down. If we're ordering things, we will write down the date that we've ordered it, the item we're ordering, and the date that we should expect it. So that once we've moved on, we don't forget to make sure that we received it, because I've learned that the hard way a time or two. And, in this moment, like listing out all the prep that needs to be done is really important as well, because you'll need to schedule either your time or the team's time to come in and get it done. For me, it really needs to be done like no later than like a week or 2 weeks before, and the earlier the better. Like, if you've been any one person who has worked with me in any respect, you know that I do not like to prep or pack the week of the event. It is what makes me sweat for sure. And the reason I'll say, I give a little grace if it's a short-term booking, like you only had like 2 weeks to put it together. Okay. But why to me does that make me sweat? Because you are literally not giving yourself any room for error. I can tell you, actually, I can't tell you. I don't even want to tell you the amount of times that I have been pulling a vase off of the shelf and saying, well, it's got to be really careful because we only have 4 of these and they're going to need all 4 of these for their event. So be sure not to break one. And like, as I'm saying it, like it's on the floor and it's shattering. Okay, that's not a problem if it's happening 2 weeks before the event. It's a problem if it's happening 10 hours before the event. So don't wait to the last minute. And if you get boxes, open them immediately to make sure that you got everything and that nothing is broken. Again, I don't even want to tell you why I'm throwing these out as tips and tricks for success, but let's just say, just learn from my mistakes. I've been doing this long enough to have a whole long list of them. That's why I think makes me good, because I've made so many mistakes to this point. I'm sure I've got plenty more to make. And when you're packing the event, I know for us, like we do a lot of custom builds on site with either our florals or centerpieces or structures or entrances or whatever. We build a lot on site. So we have our warehouses. And if we have 50 mirror tiles, but we only need 10, we're not going to bring all 50 of them. We're only going to bring 10 of them. So when you pack the event, label the tops of your boxes. So when you get on site and you put them out, you can find what you're looking for when you need them. And then at the end of the night, when you're trying to repack your event, it's a lot easier to figure out what fit into what. No later than 2 weeks prior to the event, begin what I call it an operations timeline. In our world, I would say a lot of people call it an SOS, a schedule of services. This is going to list out like what vendors are arriving at what time, what they're bringing, who their on-site contact is. And this is where you're really like coordinating that timeline. I can't tell you how important it is to understand like your load-in area, because if you've got 10 vendors loading in and it's at a dock that only holds 2 trucks, like you need to know that, because if 10 vendors show up all at the same time, it's going to be a big old mess. So this is where it's, I told you a week or so ago, it was important to me that how I felt at the end. It's important for me to feel like I have planned everything even down to when the vendors are arriving so that it's the smoothest load-in process ever. Okay, I swear, I'm almost done. Resend the final diagrams and or directions or timing to every vendor within 2 weeks of the event. I'm typically doing that when I'm working through the operations timeline. Always touch base with the venue, the client, and maybe even the vendor again, if it's a new one that you've never worked with before, the week of the event. Sometimes I call it touching. Sometimes you just have to touch them and be like, hey, just letting you know, we're excited. Can't wait to see you Friday, or whatever it is. Just touch them. It just helps them on their side as well. I feel like for anxiety if they have it. If they're a true planner, they're clicking off all kinds of things on their list. And at least if you've taken the step to say like, hey, we're good, then they know they're good. And if the event is large enough and the client or the hotel allows it, attend the pre-event meeting. This meeting is the hotel's only chance to really ask any additional questions, understand how everything's going to work on the day of. And so it's way simpler to talk about it here where there's not 1,000 people trying to get other answers from you. It's a nice time to really kind of go through that. And when you're on site, remember that diagram I showed you? Make so many copies of that. So when you have 10 different vendors staring at you going, hey, where do you want me to put my 50 different things? You can just hand them that diagram and say, just look over it. If you have any questions, we can talk through it. But the reality is like I've sent all that stuff before, but it's probably gone to someone who's sitting at a desk, not necessarily the person who is standing on site in front of me. So they probably haven't seen it before. So just be understanding, be patient, and be prepared. Now, if the event is large enough, I will say this like around the world. So I'm talking about like the around the world on this one. I will actually put 2 managers on site. One will be to really kind of oversee the vendors. And then the other one will be to oversee like our on-site internal team. So I know the linens are getting on the table. The centerpieces are getting where they need to be. Like anything that we've decided that we're going to custom build on site, it's like its own separate little team. We're like our own separate little vendor in itself. So, if the event is large enough, you need 2 managers to make that happen. Now, this is the last one and the most important one to me. Words to live by. I've used this in every training that I have ever done in any job I have ever had, and I stand by them today, and I preach them as much as I can. It is only an issue if you make it an issue. Think about that. It's only an issue if you make it an issue. So on site is when those game time decisions come. You know, I don't care how well you have planned that event. Something is going to go how you did not plan it. Something's going to change. The client's going to change their mind. The hotel's going to need to put something else in the space that we didn't account for on the diagram. You know, something's going to break in transit. Somebody's going to forget something. Good grief, you're probably going to forget something. Like, nothing ever really goes as planned. And that is totally okay. It's only an issue if you make it an issue. It's in these moments that your decision-making and problem-solving skills come into play. I love when I interview people and they have on their resume, like, they're a proven like problem solver. Like, you know, I just want to like look at them and be like, why? What makes you a proven problem solver? Because it is one thing to make a decision of what you want to order at McDonald's when you're standing in line, but it is a totally different thing to be standing on site with 10-foot poles, with nothing but 10-foot poles, and a 9-foot, 11-inch ceiling that you need to make these extravagant backgrounds happen on. That's when your problem-solving skills are tested. You know, and I will say this. If you look like something's wrong, if you look like you're worried, people will read that. Your vendors will read that. Your team will read that. Your client will read that. But if you just keep a smile on your face, you seek those mutually beneficial compromises, you have a sheer determination to succeed at every event that you plan, you will surely be successful. Okay. So let me just check. I don't know what to press right now. Let me just check and see if I've missed anything important, because I've still done a really horrible job of keeping up with it. But I can say hey to Roz. Hey, Roz. Yes, see, she feels me. So Roz is one of my very good friends from the hotel side of this business. The client or guest doesn't need to know what went wrong unless you need to tell them. That is so true. And, you know, I will say, I won't even tell a client if something is wrong until I've already got the solution and I've already fixed it and it's already better than what they thought it was going to be. That's when I tell the client if something was wrong. And if you care to ever hear more about any of my like war stories, you should ask, because I have them for everything in every single aspect of this business. I always think it's interesting when I'm training people who've never really been in events before, because they think that like you're such a good planner because everything is like the way it's supposed to be. But the reality is that you're a good planner because nothing is like it's supposed to be. And you've just made like everything better than what you originally planned. That's what makes you a good planner. Deborah, calmest under pressure I've ever worked with. I try really, really hard because I know if I can't control anything else, I can control how I feel. So thank you. That is a huge compliment. And Roz, on the fly is how we live sometimes. Girl, that's how we live all the time. Oh, yay. I love y'all. Need to come on here and chat with me more so I'm not just sitting here talking to myself. Apparently, I really like to hear myself talk because this one was a long one today. But thank you so much for hanging with me. Like I said, this is week 4. So now we are halfway done with our 8-week informational series. We're going to be back next week. Same place, same time, 1 p.m. live on the Envent's Facebook page. And we are going to tackle, bless it, that buzzword that all corporate events like to toss out, team building. So you'll have to come back next week, check it out. We're going to just understand all the elements, examples, all the fun stuff that goes into an effective team building program. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.